Hey, this is Tabby Cat, and I'm back with my intro videos to each of the 9 types for the Enneagram. Tabby Cat, Lefty Enneagram Project, Orange Jasm, Natty. And we're talking today about my type, so let's hope I don't go on for a million years. This is called the Individualist. Think Mark Maron when he says, all books I read are self-help books. Also known as the Romantic. This is the sensitive, introspective type, expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, temperamental. A lot of artists, I was looking online, a recommended job was metaphysician, so that's, a lot on the market. Virtue, equanimity, vice, passion, envy. Think about Mark Maron's envy of other comedians as sort of starting his career out. Also can just be envy of a fantasy self, envy of reality, not wanting to sit with reality and wanting to escape to fantasy. Sometimes it's called fantasizing. Holy idea of this type is origin, source, origin. The sense of, imagine Pascal when he senses God and says, oh, I've been disconnected from the source. But their fixation is melancholy, which is a fallenness from your holy idea, which brings equilibrium and equanimity, sort of this sense of yin-yang, this origin point that all flows out of, that is balanced and is not envious of white or black, but has equanimity in the origin. And the melancholy is sort of a egoic, wanting to not be, is feeling disconnected from the source and wanting to maintain your separateness as a sort of identity and uniqueness. Oh, this is a whole complicated other thing. I'm getting off my point. But some examples, Rumi. Rumi is, if you want to get the insight of a high 4, is the poetry of a 4 is Rumi, Bob Dylan, Judy Garland, Winona Ryder, Paul Simon, Virginia Woolf, the worst 4 ever in my opinion that everyone likes because he's just the cheapest 4 ever. J.D. Salinger. I wrote my college thesis on Kierkegaard. In high school I read St. Augustine's Confessions. Think about how St. Augustine says, just like Rumi says, meet you in the place beyond good and evil, Augustine, he's this confessing type like Mark Maron, but also in this very Enneagram way that our weaknesses are really just distortions of our strengths. Augustine says, the evil is just the absence of the good. There's this other compassion and source, this realization we're all connected to source, but 4s have a lot of longing for this self that hasn't occurred, for this other reality, and so for God, for connection. Marlon Brando, I always felt very deep connection to James Dean, Prince, Michael Jackson, Chopin, Billie Holiday, Edgar Allan Poe, Miles Davis, this very artistic, they paint the tela, they paint the fabric of reality, the origin, the source, and we reveal sort of the insight of melancholy and then back into equanimity that we're all always already in touch with the source, that you couldn't be separated from it. And Pascal tried to fixate that. That's identity, trying to fixate that sense of reality. 4s have insight that we have no identity, and they try to fixate their identity, that we're all connected to the source. And he tried to put in his pocket this moment, Pascal, that he felt in touch with God, fire, certitude, joy, peace, law of Abraham. Will I be cut off from these waters forever? And you have to try to force yourself, but you aren't cut off, and you won't be. And in touchness is, we express the personal and the universal and this sort of the soil of reality from which is the origin that we can regenerate outwards, this cycle forward. So we're also part of change. Think about modern times, some more subtle 4s like Natasha Leggero, Eric Andre, Dennis Rodman, trying to be too unique, Mark Maron. Looking some more. 4s are self-aware, sensitive, reserved, emotionally honest, creative, personal, individualist, right? But we end up seeing the individuality of all, the particularity that is universal, but that is always different. But also can be moody and self-conscious, They feel like they can't get out of themselves, that other people have this essence, this comfort, this sense of identity that they don't have, which is a delusion because nobody has it, and that's their insight. Withholding themselves from others due to feeling vulnerable and defective. They can also feel disdainful and exempt from ordinary ways of living. You know, I don't go to an office, or Buffy and Buffy the Vampire Slayer has a... there's this rejecting others before they reject you. She says, I have a inferiority complex about my superiority complex. So we feel different from others, but want to be normal, but it's this whole complicated thing. It's like kind of something you can grow out of, though, for sure. Ordinary ways of living, though, yeah, I really struggle with, like, dishes and bills. Jesus Christ. They typically have problems with melancholy, self-indulgence, and self-pity. So we can get where we take care of emotions before all things, and we just have this insight into a kaleidoscope of emotions, and we think by withdrawing more and more and more, we can finally have enough time to sort out of our emotions before we enter back into reality with this perfect origin and this perfect connection to source, which is this fixation of control, of trying to control yourself into connection with origin and source, instead of realizing it's there no matter what you do and relaxing into that. That sense of grace is important to all the Enneagram. I have to make a whole, tome, I think, about, since identity politics is basically the battle of the day on the left, while we have nothing else to do. Basic fear of a 4, that they have no identity or personal significance. So I think as a 4, we have an insight, because that's our fear, but it's also our insight that there is no identity, but there's no fixed identity. Identity is, Rumi. 4, stopped acting so little. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. There's no fixedness because you're always dancing. There's always connection with source and we're all connected to it, but it's also always in motion. And identity is my perceptions of who I am as self and community as I move, and the way I'm seen and the way I imagine I'm being seen, and my received ideas. And identity is all that I am in the dictionary definition, all that one is and all that one is equal to. So that's why at the highest level, the regenerative soil of a 4 uses the personal and the universal, often in art, okay? So our basic desire to find themselves and their significance, to create an identity. So this is where 4s can get diluted, and to feel unique, they try on all these identities because they feel they don't have a real fixed identity, which they don't because nobody does. That can be their insight, too, because you don't need one because you're always coming from source, and no one's unique, because if we all come from the same absolute source, another would have to come from another absolute if you were to be truly different. 4 with a 3 wing, the 3 is the achiever, is the aristocrat. 4 with a 5 wing, the investigator. Cerebral, intense type, that is the bohemian. 2 sides of the same coin, right? Aristocrat and bohemian. That's my type. Key motivations: want to express themselves in their individuality, to create and surround themselves with beauty, to feel connected to the source, to maintain certain moods and feelings, to withdraw, to protect their self-image, to take care of emotional needs before anything else, to attract a rescuer. Let me look at Oscar Chasso as I've been looking at his Holy Ideas, which I lost where I put. The awareness that all individuals are born as the result of natural, objective laws. Equanimity. It's natural. Everything that is. Lauryn Hill, I don't know what her type is, but everything is everything. That these laws continue to operate within them throughout their lives. The ground of being, right, in the Paul Tillich terminology. And because all laws are interconnected, each individual, each one identity, each node, always has an intimate physical connection with the totality of reality, the cosmos. From this springs true originality. Let me give you a quote from poem of Rumi. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. All that is in you. You are not the drop. You are not the individual one among the ocean. That you are not the source. the entire ocean is in you, but also you're just a drop, but this irrevocable tension between the personal and the universe is not a tension. There's, in the physical reality, my deepest trips are when I realized washing the dishes that the bubbles are equal to my thoughts bubbling up, and there's a total physical one-to-one of them. There's an irrevocable connection to source, to the spring, to the fount of being. From this springs true originality, the connection with the source. Melancholy feels that you are not connected and you must reestablish this and overcompensate. So, when we are disintegrating, we can get, when moving in their disintegration of disintegration, a direction of disintegration, aloof fours become over-involved in clinging at 2. Let's try I don't have a good example right now. When moving in their direction of integration, growth, envious, turbulent 4s become more objective and principled, like healthy ones. This is why I like to watch Sam Cedar on the Majority Report. It's my heart fixation point, just calms me. It's just like comforting. I'm just like, oh, it's very unconscious and low level. He's just going through the process, making sure shit's ethical, having fun. I mean, my older sister was a 1, but it's this comfort point. 2, and then always the high side, this utter givingness to others, like the holy path of a 4 is service. I mean, I'm a teacher and I get into my own world, but this outward giving to-ness is sort of this important high end to experiment as well for me. So that's my Enneagram 4 video, and see you next time on Enneagram 5.